You ever notice something strange about yourself? When nobody is around, you become a completely different version of you. Not fake, not acting, just deeper, like your mind finally breathes when the world stops talking. And here's the funny part. Most people never talk about this. They only show the public version of themselves. But the real signs, the real personality, it shows up when you're alone. And today, we're talking about exactly that, because there are 7 things you only do alone, if your mind is rare. And I don't mean rare like special in a cheesy way. I mean rare like you think differently, you feel differently, and somehow you stay mentally younger even as life goes on. And yeah, this connects deeply to ideas from Carl Jung. But don't worry, we're not going academic here. This is just us talking. So let's get into it. And I want you to stay with me till the last one. Because number 7 is the one people don't even realize they're doing. 1. You talk out loud to yourself. Okay. First one. You talk to yourself when you're alone. Not like I'm crazy talk, I mean real thinking out loud. You argue with yourself. You explain things to yourself. Sometimes you even rehearse conversations that never happened. And here's the funny thing. People with average awareness avoid this. They think it's strange. But people with a rare mind, they use it like a tool, because your mind is not just thinking. It's organizing itself. It's like your brain is saying, let's not keep this chaos inside. Let's hear it properly. And when you do this often, something interesting happens. You become mentally lighter. You don't carry confusion for days. You process faster. And you stay emotionally fresh. Like your mind doesn't get stuck in old loops. That's why you'll notice. Highly self-aware people often look calm, not because life is easy, but because they've already talked it out internally. 2. You replay moments that embarrassed you. Let's be honest. Everyone replays embarrassing moments. But rare minds don't just replay them, they analyze them. You go back like, why did I say that? Why did I react like that? Could I have done it differently? But here's where it gets interesting. You're not stuck there. You're learning yourself. Most people run from their mistakes. But you sit with them, not to suffer, but to understand. And this is where something powerful happens. You stop repeating the same emotional mistakes. You grow faster emotionally than most people. And even more important, you stop being controlled by shame. Because you've already looked it in the face. And you're still here. Still okay. Still moving. That's mental strength most people don't even notice they're missing. 3. You create full conversations in your head. This one is funny. You're in the shower, or walking, or lying down. And suddenly you're having a full conversation with someone who isn't there. And it feels real. You argue, you explain, you defend your point. Sometimes you win the argument, sometimes you don't. But here's what's happening underneath. Your mind is testing reality. You're preparing for life. You're building emotional simulations. And this is actually a sign of deep cognitive processing, because your mind is not passive. It's active even in silence, and people with this habit often perform better in real conversations, because they've already lived the moment mentally. So when it happens in real life, they're not shocked. They're ready. 4. You question your own thoughts. Now this one separates rare minds from reactive minds. You don't just think things. You question your thinking, like, why do I believe this? Is this even true? Or did I just pick this up from somewhere? And honestly, this can feel uncomfortable sometimes, because it means you don't fully trust your first thought. But that's actually a strength. Because most people live on autopilot thinking. You interrupt your own mind. And this creates something powerful, self-correction. You don't stay stuck in false beliefs for long. You evolve your thinking constantly, and that keeps your mind young, because stagnation is what makes people mentally old, not age. 5. You enjoy silence more than noise. Now this one might surprise some people. You don't always need stimulation. You can sit in silence and not feel empty. In fact, sometimes you prefer it, and people might not understand that. They think something is wrong, but actually, your mind is doing something deep. It's processing, it's reorganizing, it's resetting. Because silence is not empty for you. It's full of thoughts, clarity, awareness, and this is where your mind stays young, because it's not constantly overloaded. It gets space to breathe, and anything that breathes doesn't age the same way. 6. You observe your own emotions in real time. This one is powerful. You're not just angry. You notice you're angry. You're not just sad. You notice the sadness forming. It's like there's a part of you watching you. And this is rare, because most people become their emotions. But you observe them. And when you observe something, you gain distance from it. And that distance gives you control. You don't react blindly. You respond with awareness. This is emotional intelligence at a deep level. Not the surface kind, the quiet kind. The kind people feel in your presence but can't explain. 7. You feel like time moves differently when you're alone now. This is the final one. And pay attention here. When you're alone, time feels different. Sometimes it slows down. Sometimes it disappears. You might sit for hours without realizing it. Not because you're distracted, but because you're deeply present inside your own mind. And in those moments, you're not just existing, you're integrating yourself, past thoughts, present awareness, future imagination, all blending together. And this is what keeps your mind young, because mentally aging doesn't come from time, it comes from mental rigidity. But you're still fluid, still thinking, still observing, still aware, and that is rare. So let me ask you something real, not just as a viewer, not just as someone scrolling, but as a human being sitting with your own thoughts for a moment. Did you recognize yourself in any of these? Or maybe all of them? Because if you did, I want you to understand something very important here. You're not someone who just moves through life automatically. You're someone who actually experiences life from the inside. And that sounds simple, but it changes everything, because most people live on the surface of life. They wake up, they react, they scroll, they talk, they sleep, and repeat. But you don't just live life. You observe it while it's happening inside you, and that creates a completely different relationship with the world. Now I want you to sit with that for a second, not overthink it, just feel it, because people like that. People who spend time inside their own mind, they often feel like something is different about them, sometimes even a little isolated, like they're not fully part of the noise of the world. But here's the part nobody tells you. That distance you feel. It's not a weakness, it's awareness, and awareness changes how you see everything, even the smallest things, like how you speak, how you react, how you understand people, and even how you understand yourself. Now I want to go back to something we touched earlier, the idea that when you're alone, your mind starts showing its real patterns. Because silence doesn't lie. People can hide in conversations. People can hide in crowds. People can even hide in success. But when everything is quiet, you meet yourself, and that meeting, it's not always loud. Sometimes it's very subtle. A thought you didn't notice before, a memory that suddenly comes back, a feeling you didn't fully understand at the time. And if you've ever sat alone and felt like your mind starts talking more when the world gets quiet, that's not random. That's your inner world waking up. Now here's something deeper. There's a reason people who think deeply often seem younger mentally. It's not about age. It's about flexibility of mind. Some people become mentally rigid over time. They stop questioning. They stop reflecting. They stop exploring themselves. But people like you, even when you don't realize it, you're still mentally moving, still questioning, still observing, still replaying, still adjusting, and that movement, that inner movement, keeps something alive in you, something that doesn't fully freeze with time. And that's why sometimes you might feel younger than your actual age in the way you think. Not childish, not immature, just aware, still curious, still mentally active, still questioning life instead of just accepting it blindly. And I want you to really hear this part, because it matters. You don't stay mentally young by avoiding life. You stay mentally young by engaging with your inner world honestly. Even the uncomfortable parts, even the thoughts you don't always want to admit, even the memories you wish you could skip over, because every time you sit with yourself like that, you're actually doing something very powerful. You're integrating your mind. You're not splitting away from yourself. You're becoming more whole. And that is something most people never talk about. Now let's bring it back to you for a second, because this video was never really about types of people. It was about recognition of your own mind. So again, which one of those 7 things hit you the most? Not logically, but emotionally. The one where you heard it and immediately thought, yeah, that's me. I really want you to drop that in the comments. Not for engagement, but because when people share things like that, they realize they're not as alone in their thinking as they believed. And that alone can shift something inside you. Now, before we end this, I want to leave you with one simple thought. Next time you find yourself alone, don't rush to fill it. Don't immediately reach for noise. Don't escape the silence too quickly. Just stay there for a moment and notice what your mind does first. Because at first, it might feel like nothing, just quiet. But then, thoughts start to rise. Not chaos, just awareness. And if you stay with it long enough, you might notice something very subtle. Your mind starts organizing itself without pressure. Not forced thinking, just natural unfolding. And that's when you realize something very powerful. You're not just inside your thoughts, you're also the one noticing them, and that separation between you and your thoughts is where clarity begins. So yeah, sometimes the rarest minds aren't the loudest minds. They're not the most social minds. They're not even the most successful-looking minds. They're the ones that are quiet enough to hear themselves clearly, without running away from it. Now, I'm going to leave you with this last moment. Just one simple reminder from this whole conversation. You don't need to become someone else. You don't need to force anything. You just need to understand what's already happening inside you, a little more clearly. And that alone can change how you move through life. All right. I'll see you in the next one.